welcome back to the channel and part 2 in the series about how to customise and maintain your Microcat. During the series I'll be doing various mods to a Mark 1 Microcat to demonstrate how you can modify your own boat. I decided to put this series together to answer some of the questions I get about my own home built bait boats and also show people how easy it is to build and customise your own boat. Here's a quick rundown of what I got up to in the last episode and what I'll be doing in this episode. Part 1, I opened the boat up and ran through the method I used to get into mine. Then I stripped it all down, showing everything that I got rid of and what I'll be keeping on the boat to do the mods. This episode I'll be running through the gear I'll be replacing the 40MHz gear with and why I use that gear, and also upgrading the hopper mechanism. Last episode I stripped out the Flexinol wire that opens the hopper doors, so this episode I'm replacing that with the servo mechanism instead. So here's the radio gear I'll be using to replace the angling Technics gear with. This is what probably 99% of Microcat owners have as their transmitter. It's a Futaba SkySport 4-channel 40MHz transmitter. It's pretty basic in terms of transmitters nowadays. There's not a lot of functionality you can do with them other than channel trims or reverser channels, which is what the angling Technics sticker on the front of the transmitter covers up. And here's what I use with my boats. This is an FrSky X-Lite 2.4GHz transmitter which runs the OpenTX firmware. OpenTX is an open source, highly configurable firmware that's flashed to the transmitter that brings so many more features than those found on traditional radios. I'll show you what's possible with the radio when I come to configure the servos later for the hopper mechanism. OpenTX also has a massive following, so if there's ever anything you want to do with the radio that you don't already know, there's always a video on YouTube that can show you what you need to know. I love this radio. It's light, powerful, compact, the battery life on it lasts ages. It comes with a protective case and is completely configurable with OpenTX. It has the usual 2 4-channel sticks along with 2 2-position switches, 2 3-position switches and 2 slider potentiometers, any of which of these can be configured as an output to the receiver. It can store up to 60 models, which can also be expanded to even more with an additional SD card. I'm sure we've all had the joy of trying to change out the battery from the SkySport radio when it gets too low. The SkySport radio uses either nickel cadmium or nickel metal hydride batteries, whereas the X-Lite uses 2 18500 lithium ion batteries, which are tiny, and if they ever did run out, carrying a couple of spares around and swapping them out is easy. Another feature of OpenTX is that it supports telemetry, which can send data back to the transmitter from the boat. Here's a few shots of what the data being transmitted from my other boat looks like. This shows me the percentage of the battery left, the voltage of the battery on the boat, the current being drawn by the boat, the compass and bearing heading of the boat, how many satellites the boat is currently connected to, the voltage of the receiver on the boat, how many metres the boat has travelled, the time the boat has been travelling, and the RSSI, which is the receiver signal strength indicator. There are also a few different layouts of what the telemetry can look like. One of the views even uses the IMU on the boat controller that shows you how much your boat is moving about when out on the water. Here's a shot of the old Microcat control board which has the Futaba 40MHz receiver soldered to it. Here I'm just removing the crystal, which is what tunes the signal from the transmitter to the Microcat. 2.4GHz receivers are bound to the transmitter with something called a GUID, which stands for a Global Unique Identification. This means that you'll never get another boat on the lake interfering with your boat, as the transmitter and receiver are bound together with a completely unique ID. I've never heard of this happening, but it could be possible in the 40MHz band for someone to have the same crystal as another boat on the lake, which could cause interference. Here's a shot of the receiver I'll be using for the first half of the series, where I'll be doing less advanced mods. This is a Radiomaster R86 Reciever, which uses the FrSky protocol. This is a standard 6-channel PWM receiver, where you plug the standard servo connectors to each channel on the receiver. And this is the receiver I'll be using for the more advanced mods. This is the tiny FrSky RXXR 16-channel S-Bus receiver. The lack of the servo connectors is due to the way the receiver controls all 16 channels of data received from the transmitter with a single S-Bus cable. The S-Bus cable is attached to the boat controller that converts the S-Bus signal into individual channels. This receiver can also send telemetry back from the controller it's connected to on the boat to the transmitter on the bank. So that's pretty much it for the radio gear I use. If you have any questions, please drop a comment down below and I'll see if I can help you out. So here's what I did for the servo mod. Here's everything I used to do the mod. 2 digital metal geared standard size servos, 2 25 tooth M3 black aluminium servo horns, 2 standard aluminium servo mounts, 4 M3 40mm stainless steel countersunk bolts, 10 M3 40mm stainless steel cap head bolts, 6 M3 stainless steel nylock nuts, 4 M3 stainless steel washers, 1 servo signal reverser, servo cabling, soldering iron, grease, M3 tap set, which includes the taper, the plug and the bottoming tap, a 2mm drill bit and a 2.5mm drill bit. I started off by bolting the 2 servo mounts to the pre-existing holes that were tapped through the stern of the hull for the flexnile mechanism. This just sets the servo mounts in the right position before drilling the pilot hole for the new holes I'll need for the tap. With a Dremel tool, I use a 2mm bit to drill a pilot hole through the stern of the boat. This is just a pilot for the 2.5mm hole I need to tap the M3 threads with. Then with a 2.5mm drill, I went back through the pilot hole so that the servo mounting holes are positioned correctly. There are 3 M3 taps: the taper tap, the plug tap and the bottoming tap. The taper tap is used first to start cutting the thread. It provides a very gradual and less aggressive cutting action. You can cut threads by hand, but I find it easier to use a variable speed drill with an adjustable clutch when tapping. The plug tap has a less pronounced taper to the cutting edges. This gives the plug tap a gradual cutting action that's more aggressive than the taper tap, but less aggressive than the bottoming tap. Then the bottoming tap is used. This is the most aggressive cutting action and is generally used to finish tapping a thread. To be honest, this is just acrylic plastic, so not generally hard to tap, but it's good practice to use all the taps when tapping holes. Just a quick squirt of degreaser to clean off any grease left over by the tapping process. With the servo mounts, I used a blob of Loctite on the 4 14mm M3 countersunk screws before threading them back through the hole. Then on the back of these I put 2 stainless M3 washers and hand tightened the M3 nylon nuts up to where the thread goes through the nylon. I decided that I just want to use a single 2-position switch on the transmitter to open both of the hopper doors at the same time. As both of the servos will be connected to a single channel on the receiver, they would normally operate in the same direction as each other. Adding the servo reverser to one of the servos enables the servos to operate in different directions, which will allow both doors to be opened at the same time. You can still operate both hoppers independently if you wanted to. You just wouldn't need the servo reverser. When both servos turn anti-clockwise, the port hopper would open and the starboard hopper mechanism would go slack, and vice versa. I'll show you what this looks like later. Now just fit the 2 servos to the mounts using the M3 stainless steel cap head bolts. Here I'm just demonstrating the throw that both servos have when provided with 100% weight. This is way too much and would cause strain on the hopper release catches if kept like this when connected to the servos. To counteract this, I worked out that around 60% weight would be sufficient for the servos to open the catches without causing any additional strain on the mechanism. As both hoppers will be operated with a single 2-position switch on the radio, I only need the servos to move in one direction. This is all sorted by going into the Mixes tab in OpenTX and setting up a mix with a 2-position switch. Select the source by flicking the switch that you want to configure. As I need 60% weight but the servos to only move in one direction, I added 30% weight to the source and also added 30% positive offset, which gives 60% weight in the direction I require. Once I was happy with the servo setup, I just named the mix hopper so that I know which mix is which. I I'll be doing more with channel mixing when I come to rewire the boat, as 2 channels will need mixing to operate the boat with a single stick on the radio. Next I measured the rough distance between the hopper release catch and the servo horn with a vernier. This doesn't need to be too accurate, I just rounded the 122mm to 12cm. Then I got some corded boom, fluorocarbon, 4 ring swivels and some crimps to create the linkages between the hopper release catch and the servo horn. I created a jig which was around 12cm wide to ensure both linkages were of equal length, and then just tidied them all up with some heat shrink tubing. I connected both of the linkages to the servo horn with the remaining M3 stainless steel cap head bolts and the last 2 nylock nuts, ensuring that I left enough play for the linkages to swivel on the arms. Then it's just a matter of screwing the servo horns to the servos and connecting the other ends of the linkages to the hopper release mechanism, making sure that the servos are in the neutral position before bolting it all together. If you did want the hoppers to work independently, here's what the linkages look like when the servos are driven in the opposite direction. As I mentioned before, you wouldn't need the servo reverser or set an offset on the channel mix. You would just set the weight to 60% and they will work independently. The next I'll just give it a few tests through to ensure everything's working perfectly. So here it is, all finished. I soldered both servos directly to the servo reverser. One servo to one end and the other servo to the other end. Then I did a single lead to the receiver so both servos work off one channel and rotate in opposite directions of each other. I covered the servo leads in some black cable sleeving and also heat shrunk the signal reverser, then cable tied it all to the stern of the boat. Next episode, I'll be rewiring the boat, upgrading the LED controls and also fitting a remote switch so the boat can be turned on remotely and there's no external switch. So thanks for watching, please like, share and subscribe to the channel if you like content like this. I'm planning on doing more series like this in the future with different boats, so if you do have a boat that you'd like to see upgraded, drop a comment down below. Also check out my other videos on the channel, these will give you an idea of what you can expect in the coming episodes. Until next time, keep modding.